Tetris is a foundational part of video games. It defined its genre, it defined a console, and it redefined a Russian folk song. It's had at least 100 official releases on over 50 different platforms. It's an exceptional masterpiece of game design that's had only relatively small changes in its 36 years in existence. It's a continually ramping challenge, and it's almost endlessly replayable. But how can a game that can look like this be a positive or even relaxing mental health experience? This is Tetris Effect. Tetris Effect, at the very core of its gameplay, is Tetris as everyone already knows it. Blocks drop in, you create solid lines to wipe them out and aim to hit the highest score you can. What Tetris Effect changes is how it presents and how it reacts to that gameplay. The game has distinct levels which involve different environments and different music. Within these levels, each action you take in the game creates audio-visual reactions that synchronize with and alter the music being played and the environment you're in. This is producer Tetsuya Mizuguchi's take on the idea of synesthesia, the phenomenon where one sensory input triggers an involuntary response in another. Over his career, he's experimented with this concept many times, most famously in the landmark title Res, originally released for the Dreamcast. It's a dry explanation for game design that attempts to make our play experience into something more sensual, or enveloping, something whole. There's no substitute for playing the game, but here's a brief segment of it. To explain why I think Tetris Effect can be a positive game for mental health, we need to talk about the psychological state known as flow, or being in the zone. Flow is the mental state of being entirely immersed within an activity, to the point that you lose a sense of self and time. Everyone experiences it at different times, and it's something that can happen in almost any activity. If you're experiencing intrinsic enjoyment of an activity, then you can lose yourself within it. Your senses are essentially all focused into the experience, and those that are not directly related are almost shed completely. People in a state of flow can easily lose their sense of hunger or fatigue. For that time as a being, they simply are. Thanks to this, Tetris Effect is wonderfully placed to create that sense of flow. Tetris as a game demands your concentration to play, but if you focus too much on individual elements, you can't succeed. The best way to play is almost instinctually, to play within a flow state. Tetris Effect's audio-visual reactions, tied directly to your gameplay, allow a player to naturally focus. It engages your senses directly, satisfies them, and ties them together in a facsimile of synesthesia. How does this relate to mental health? Simply, Tetris and the flow state can disrupt our chain of thought. It's a common thing with certain mental health issues, such as PTSD, to have what's known as intrusive thoughts or memories. They're unwanted, involuntary thoughts that can cause great distress for the person having them. These can be things like obsessive questioning that's difficult to stop, or flashbacks to traumatic events. They're unwanted, and it can be hard to deal with or dismiss them. Everyone deals with intrusive thoughts at some point in their life. Common ones involve things like the idea of swerving into traffic, a fear of finding a family member attractive, or worrying that surfaces are contaminated with disease. It can be scary when you have those thoughts, but the important thing is that they're just thoughts, they're not real desires or impulses. There are some links in the description for more information about intrusive thoughts, and some of the treatments involved in dealing with them. My personal experience with this when playing Tetris Effect was that it managed to disrupt my chain of thoughts. The sensory engagement, whilst not always entering a flow state, took my attention away from traumatic flashbacks. It demanded my attention, but it also gave back to me in positive ways. And I discovered that this wasn't something that I was just having at a personal level. Researchers wanted to look at alternatives for immediate post-trauma treatment, And they hypothesized that intrusive memories could be reduced by having subjects play a game that had high visuospatial demands during the period when memories are short-term and malleable before they pass into long-term. They chose Tetris, and they found it was successful. Playing the game disrupted the formation of the traumatic memories and reduced flashbacks for those who played it versus those who hadn't. It's worth noting that this was a small study, and successful as a proof of concept for further work, not as a final conclusion unto itself. But it's something I found fascinating, especially with how it lined up with my own experiences. I've provided a link at the bottom for you to read the paper if you want. As with any of this, I'm not a doctor, and I can go solely from my own long experience living with mental health conditions. So if this sounds like it won't work for you, I hope you can find something that does. But if it sounds like it might be a positive experience for you, or even just a fun game to play, I can highly recommend it.
Come follow me. I'll show you the side of the world, the places that you'll never see. Come follow me.